It's January 17th, 2021. This is my new sun day. So even though I had ET type experiences and what seemed like abduction, it was always different than other things that I heard, in the experiencer circles. Even way back then, my drive, my sole passion was to bring these truths, these ongoing activities out into the open, primarily focusing on the evolution of it. My issues with the existing communities has been that it's materialist. It's not looking at the arc, the evolutionary arc of contact or dialogue with other. Most want to sensationalize it, and in these days now, it's like, how can I get the most clicks on social media? Anyway, this woman, very first other experiencer that I had a dialogue with, when I suggested that we collaborate on something, she shut me down and ran. But then I've noticed that pattern quite often. It terrifies people. They have lives. And I understand that. And I also understand that not everybody is here to be public about it. And I personally am not able to withhold truth, to withhold what I feel and perceive honestly. And that's, I'm sure, a result of this practice of speaking the truth and attuning the body with the sound of the truth in my voice. My body responds to it and starts to hum with this truth, and then it opens me up to, kind of locks me into this song. Everything harmonizes, and that's when this doorway opens and I'm able to receive this pure energy transmission and translate it. I don't have all the answers. I simply have my sphere of data. In this moment, I'm feeling the hum. I'm feeling that peace. It doesn't take me long now. After doing this practice for 16 years now. It was really, 12 years ago that this really started to blossom. I knew that it was real, and it was pure joy, just ecstatic responses to this presence in my body. And just, it's a presence, but it's also just pure data. And this is the field. This is the light and the sound that we're all connected to if we're in harmony with ourselves. I'm not in a position, and I don't have the language to reach people that might otherwise be interested in this organic evolution of consciousness. The filling in of the blanks, as I have referred to it before, because it doesn't come in your structured languages and concepts. It's energy, and it just fills you in. So I'm listening to my body to perceive what it's reporting to me. I'm feeling joy. This is the evolution of this practice. I remember when I consistently got to this space of, responding to the question, what are you feeling now? 10 years ago, it was a lot, and just a lot of incongruency within me. And now it's once I connect, it's mostly I feel joy, I feel peace, and then beauty will sweep through me, and just the presence that is loving and that I attune to. And so when I speak the truth, this practice, over time, in speaking what's actually happening and in feeling terms, the body, as I was saying before, the body responds to truth. It's like playing on the piano keyboard. It's you can play a chord that has a very incongruent note that isn't pleasant sounding or feeling, and if we don't call it out, it just stays under the surface. And so I feel that what this practice is it's just simply calling it out. It's saying, I feel this pain, on my right side, and I'm feeling, sad, or I'm just making this up at this point because I don't feel this. Just trying to give an example. And so when you keep saying out loud what is actual, what is true, and you keep calling it out, you are retuning. And then that, at a certain point, that note, discordant chord, it shifts. And then one day you feel it leave, like your fingers on the keys are no longer insisting on unconsciously pressing that discordant note, that throws off the entire balance of the song. And it keeps us inside a smaller reality where in many cases there are, family and friends in our circles around us that also agree with that discordant sound. And not because they are consciously choosing to be in disharmony. They just don't know that that's what's happening because their community reinforces it. Their community has generated their own song and patterns. And so it isn't as the disharmony isn't as clear or obvious when it's reinforced by the community. So that's why this practice, it encourages the dialogue with, in the beginning stages, it's, you choose. Who are you, who do you want to dialogue with that's beyond your field, your agreed upon field, your conditioned reality, consensus reality. You can imagine, your guides. You can imagine Jesus. You can imagine, whatever other great teacher, Buddha, Muhammad, or you can just commune with the angels, dialogue with the angels, or dialogue directly with original source creator. It's up to you. And what this does is you begin to attune beyond this smaller sphere or field generated by agreement to stay small in some way, shape, or form. When you make it real on a consistent basis, what is actual, what you're actually feeling in the present moment, what you're doing is you're not ignoring that loud, discordant sound anymore. Even if you lose friends, or you're banished from the tribe, this must be done so that you can expand into and attune to a larger sphere. All this talk about, the cabal and the bad guys, that manipulate and propagandize and, generate mind control psyops, all of this, it can only occur because we're not aware that we're inside of a contained smaller sphere, that we agree to look away from the truth. We agree to live in disharmony. We agree that this is what life is, and this is as big as life gets. And so it just makes us vulnerable to those who are aware, through, their own generational practices, identities, tribe, that they have power over the masses. So they're informed of this when they come in, and they perpetuate their role. So I've come to learn that it isn't as clear-cut as people think it is. And what I've come to understand is that the unconsciousness is all pervasive in these smaller spheres or fields of reality. We just keep doing and being within this containment. The practice that was given to me is to speak the truth of what you're feeling, not your opinions. You're not speaking from the platform of this containment that you were conditioned within. It's encouraging you to speak what is true in what you feel. The biggest hurdle is beginning, because there's a very, very, very deep, centuries upon centuries wounding of not welcoming, acknowledging, honoring what is actual, what are you feeling. There's a lot of cover stories that occur in the beginning when you sit down to speak what you're feeling. There's just this so many layers of the superficial. And I went through that too when I started. I think I even refer to it in my book. When the presence came in and said, "What are you feeling? What are you feeling now?" My first layer of response was, well, first of all, it was like, what is happening? Something's dialoguing with me. Something has responded back to me. And my first response was on a superficial level. I'm great. Everything's great. With a smile, And then it was just a long pause. And then I just knew, oh, that isn't what I'm feeling. So it's a process of noticing what you say and what is actual is in a discordant, incoherent state. And we are encouraged in our world to live in this incoherent state. And we just agree that that's what life is. So what this practice does is it attunes. I'm just speaking purely by feeling. I don't know. I know there are lots of people who write about this kind of stuff. Some of it ancient and some of it new. But all I can ever do is speak from the actual feeling of it. And all I know is that over time and my commitment to follow this practice given to me, I noticed each time I would do it, I would just be kind of digging away at something, all these layers within me of the covering over, because my world encouraged me to cover things over. My world encouraged me to deny what was actual so that I could participate in this game, in this unreality. Over time, I would experience these moments of breakthrough, and I would notice something just happened. What was that? Wow. You can feel it because you're getting sensitized to what coherency feels like. It's definitely a new feeling for most people. And that's why this practice is focused on feelings. And musicians, singers, dancers, they will know more readily what I'm speaking of. Because they can't just stay in their head in just thoughts that are generated from within the smaller sphere container. All artists must go beyond the given sphere in order to open themselves to inspiration and then bring it through, and sometimes we end up manifesting, we end up creating something with the materials in the smaller sphere that represents the best we can capture it in form. But that thing, as beautiful as it might be, or as confrontational as it might be, it is only a a three-dimensional representation of what is actual. We're simply trapped in a reality that we slowly over time agree to because our very survival depends on it, because everything's based on money and the values that are, given to us and we settle on, not understanding that there are deeper, more profound values, deeper, more profound music on a universal scale. Over time, for me, in practicing this, I would notice these breakthroughs. There were stages along the way that I would go, oh my God, I have so much understanding now. And I see, and my gifts, just flourished. My ability to feel the wounding of others and help guide them and inspire them. But I have to say that most people reject it mostly because the mind, the ego, the intellect is just not willing to sit it out. And it's not willing to not be in control. And that's a struggle right there from the start. We are so programmed to present an identity and our work and service that will earn our keep in this reality. That we are unconscious, mostly, that we reduce ourselves to keep up that persona. And that's the catch-22. This is something that I have worked my entire life on, breaking through some of these final outer walls of this containment. And money is one of the final outer walls, this systemic control and fear. And I navigated this for most of my life. I overcame and pushed through a lot of fear around these layers. And that's another whole story. But I believe there are many of us here who arrive in these times to break through these walls, even if we never become visible to consensus reality. And, it's just been in the past few years that I've realized and come to terms with the fact that I was never here to find a place in that old paradigm. That wasn't my world. I'm just one of many who are here to bridge to more of the song of who we actually are, our original design. And the presence has informed me often, reminded me often that this isn't really about the evolution of consciousness, it's about the restoration of our original design. And the rediscovery of this and the willingness to be conscious around it is our way through, is our way out of this limited spectrum of perception. I think it's interesting that I've developed this way of speaking now. I don't, 9 times out of 10 when I would connect on my Sundays, it would transition into into a transmission. And while this is a transmission as well, it's more of a blend of the human, Eileen, merging and blending into these other harmonizing pieces of myself. So that I don't have to necessarily go into an altered state anymore. So I don't know, is that a sign of greater integration of these aspects of my consciousness? See, I don't know these things. I need others to reflect with. I need others that are beyond the fear of losing revenue or being judged by their peers for listening to someone like me. It's just easier to, pretend my voice is inaudible and that I'm invisible. Because I am, just like these aspects of me were invisible until they started, permeating my consciousness and, waking me up and snapping me out of my sleep, my deep, insistence that I adapt to this world and this reality. And these other aspects of my consciousness, it was like a rescue mission. I don't know how else to say it. And initially, scary in my teens and in my 20s, and certainly not when I was a little girl. I was still connected. I was still perceiving, and I was still in harmony enough that I could perceive this communion and recognize that it is different. It's a different song than, my family life and going to school and my friends at school. And then, it was right around 7 years old. It was like, we won't be as visible to you anymore. We won't be here in, conversation so much anymore. Communion. And I remember crying. I remember feeling just an awareness of the loss of that connection. So it just seems like there was this planned intervention over my life that would keep me from ever really sinking into that old world, that old paradigm. Today, I can feel that old reality it's gone already. And people keep it alive by giving it power and energy and wanting to return to it. And if there is that longing to go back, then that group consciousness will regenerate it, recreate it, until they don't want to experience in that way anymore and they break through. These fields that can be generated by thought, by fear. I feel this practice that was given to me was the way to see it for what it is, call it out, and begin to feel the differences between the feelings that keep you trapped in that particular equation and the feelings of harmony and feelings of beauty, of grace. You start to get glimpses of this in your body, and then that's really what pulls you up and out of the old agreements to stay in that smaller field. So that old world, as I perceive it, it's so far, it's so gone, and yet I'm aware that I only have a few humans in my life that are perceiving, are still in form like me, and yet perceiving and attuning to the greater song. And I'm so grateful for that. And the things that I find myself wondering about pretty much on a daily basis is, what does this end up looking like in the physical reality? There are a number of scenarios that, like little vignettes that I imagine and ponder, knowing that I'm never going back to that old reality. What does it end up looking like physically? Or have we come to the end, at this 13,000 year mark when, massive destruction occurs because, massive cleansing occurs on the physical, 3D level, the purging. So is that what's coming soon? Any day now? And, I don't have any fear of that. After this life, you just, so many, deaths and rebirths in my life that there is absolutely no fear of death, no fear of transformation. So I'm just here until I'm not here. And I will move with the greater song that I have attuned to and integrated into my form. And then, reincarnationally speaking, I can see that, the soul keeps reincarnating back into the sphere of existence that it perceives. And so, growth and new understanding can occur in those smaller spaces, but one has to get to the point where they become ultra aware that this doesn't make sense and be willing to speak that truth, change themselves, and ultimately change their sphere of existence. And I feel like maybe in the Mayan calendar and other indigenous representations, that this is a major cycle of, potential to expand beyond the smaller cycles that we have been agreeing to exist within. If one can wake up out of it and reattune to the universal, reattune to love, and see and fully understand in the body what we are connected to. The symphony. These are truly amazing times, and with each and every passing new day or new present moment consciousness, I just really celebrate this amazing experience in consciousness to live through these crossroads, to be human and meet this potential to rise above, to rise through it, to transcend it. And ascension doesn't happen in the thinking mind. It doesn't just happen because you think it should happen or you are aligned with a story that or a narrative in the outer world that tells you, just believe this and you will ascend. That's a trick. That's something that you have to grow in your own inner practice of coherence to know what the truth is. In your body will tell you. You will know beyond a shadow of a doubt. In the beginning stages, it's knowing, you just kind of know, that's not true what that person's saying. Something's not right about that, And then when you continue to practice your emotional awareness, and you begin working with this, mother consciousness at our core, it isn't so much on that level anymore. It starts to really transcend the whole structure, the whole collective agreement. And it's the combination of the Father Spirit and the Mother Creator, Father of Heaven, and Mother Earth, bridging these within our own consciousness and giving birth to this Christ sphere and becoming conscious children of the creators, the Mother, Father, Creator. No longer separate, no longer distant, but bridged within us. This isn't a series of ideas that I share with you. This is something born in me. I've had to be a detective, an investigator, a researcher within my whole life, because there was nothing out there that explained it. Nothing. So at a certain point, I abandoned that. I abandoned that need to have my experiences and my inner organic understandings to be validated by this smaller sphere of reality. That is the definition of insanity. So one absolutely cannot, break through these walls and transcend if one has an ego identity. Because you go for so long without any validation from the world, and you wonder why you're here, and you question your own existence until you fully turn in the direction of that light, that sound that sustains. Thy grace is my sufficiency, and it is what informs me of who I am. And that is what strengthens me and helps me to wake up every morning in joy and gratitude. You can't just imagine this kind of joy. You can't imagine this kind of peace. One can try to imagine what that's like, but it's always about what it's like. Once you attune, you don't have to imagine. It's you, it's I, and it's alive in form. And this is who we are. This is how we were designed to be. And my work is simply to share my data, to share my breakthrough in understanding this, my breakthrough in embodying this. Now, I'm sure there are many people on the planet that could help me translate what has happened to me in some kind of, existing frame. But really in these times, unless frames are changing and growing and expanding every day, they're useless. because nothing is static right now. Everything is accelerating at a very rapid speed. And we're either moving with it or we're rejecting it and heading back into, the comfort zone of the prison cell. Just this is what I know, so I'm going to stay with this. And that's a choice, and that's okay. There's no judgment. I share in this way because I just want you to know that there are other options. You don't have to stay small. And you don't have to have had some lifelong practice of religion or spirituality. There's no real prerequisites on a worldly level. It's a moment where you use your will to choose to expand instead of closing off your will and agreeing to contract. That's all that's required is a moment of present moment attention, and a series of these moments in the beginning, because that's what it looks like in the beginning. Is you might do the practice and say, I'm here, I choose love, I'm willing to move with this love, and I don't know anything with my thinking mind, so I surrender and I allow the truth to inform me, even if I don't understand it with my mind. Just things like that. And there's more to it that I could share, but that's not what I'm doing in this moment. And then you'll forget. Then you'll fall back in to the groove of everyone around you. And you'll start speaking that language. You'll start agreeing with what they're saying until you go, oh, look at what I'm doing. So there's this moment of self-awareness. Look at the language that I'm speaking. Is this true? Is this actually how I feel? And so then you go, oh, I remember now. Okay, I'm in a present moment. I'm here. I choose love. I don't understand how this works. And I understand that I don't need to know with my thinking mind how this works. I just know that I'm here and I'm willing to expand into this love. Yeah. And then you'll find yourself again falling back into the old patterns and until you go, you don't need aliens or angels to come in and shake you awake like they did with me, because it's more present now, this light. It's available to you more presently than it was to me in the thickness and the density that I was born into. So it's you going, oh, look, I'm in a present moment again. It's the doorway. Oh my God, I'm in the doorway again. What do I want to say to the angels? What do I want to say to the universal sphere? Because there's a doorway and they can see me and hear me, and I can begin to perceive them, this still in this stage of, I and thou, or us and them. It's okay. We haven't integrated yet, so they still appear to be angels out there or other out there, even source, until it's integrated. But the dialogue must begin on that threshold, the present moment awareness, where you realize, there's a doorway here. And I'm going to begin to dialogue in the direction of the new sun, the new world, the greater potential that I can walk into willingly. You see, nobody's going to be saved or yanked out or raptured up into anything that they're not ready for. This light, this power, I have experienced and have been pushing this envelope, without totally understanding what was happening at the time. But I was pressed further and further into just how much can you handle in your body with this high frequency. At first, it doesn't feel like love. But then as you adapt to it and you cohere to it, it is phenomenal levels of love, peace, joy, creativity. It's beyond explanation. But you can't just go there because you think, you followed what your church told you to do, what your pastor told you to do. You followed the instructions of the smaller paradigm, the smaller spectrum of consciousness. That doesn't gain you entry. You don't get a ticket out of this limited reality if you're agreeing with the limited reality that you're limited on a consistent basis. You have to go to that threshold in the present moment, state that you're here, and state your willingness to walk across that threshold and trust in that love that you will adapt to it with your regular attention to this coherence and adaptation to the universal, to the greater song, to the symphony, to original source creator. Then you can continue on your path of adapting to more and more and more of your natural state. Now, I've been sharing a very long time. It's part of my path to document this journey. And context for an evolutionary arc, it's important to consider that as part of the equation when you study these things. I've never claimed to fully arrive. This is an ongoing journey. This is an ongoing expansion. There really isn't an end to it. But what I am aware of is an ending to old context and a willingness to walk across the threshold into a new and greater context and adapting to that. But always just with the presence, bringing ourselves consciously into the presence to meet and dialogue with these greater aspects of ourself, whatever form you want to initially imagine that to be. But I'm here to say that this doorway is still open, and it only opens when we arrive on the threshold consciously. And it is our will, our willingness to go to the doorway and say, oh, this is a new present moment. Oh my God, I have power in this present moment. Speak your truth. Truth spoken about what is actual, what you are actually feeling right now, opens that doorway. Begin to attune to your feeling body. And it's an actual palpable, embodied feeling. When you pop into a zone, it's like, boom. And it's like this channel is open. And you can perceive things and understand things. Again, as I was saying earlier, the data, the information is in this love, and it informs you on levels that you didn't know you had access to. So I have a practice where I mentor clients, but they don't really need me. I mean, it's nice to have someone to reflect with. This is more important now than anything, is is community and reflecting to each other. Because if you're not already engaged with some form of attunement practice to these greater dimensional realities and aspects of yourself, nobody can really help you by bringing you or dragging you, as I was saying earlier, into a greater reality. This is something that has to occur in your consciousness. And so at a certain point, they must be living it. They must be recognizing, the markers that they are expanding, the feedback, the validation from the multi-dimensions, rather than seeking validation from the old world. So we are moving into community and the importance of communion with each other and practicing with each other to maintain and expand from this foundation of truth, of actuality. The foundation of what is actual rather than a foundation of a false reality. So this is the threshold that we're on. I love this work with all my heart. I'm amazed at many now moments throughout my days. I'm amazed that the energy that I have I'm going to be 60 in a few days. And I have never felt more alive. I have never felt healthier. I've never felt more joyful. And I'm just so grateful, so very grateful to have had this help and support, this compassion from beyond this construct that we were born into. And in turn, I want to help you to understand the opportunity now. I want you to know that you have a choice. You don't have to contract. You don't have to attune to war. You don't have to attune to the polarization. Because in this polarized reality, what you resist persists, and you're actually feeding that which you say you don't want. And it's very tricky that way. So it's time to attune to a greater song. Because you're greater than this fear-based behavior. When you walk into more dimensions, more conscious and integrated dimensions of yourself, there's nothing to fight anymore. So in a way, when you do engage in a battle in the world, and you feel like a victim and you have to fight for your rights, make a stand. But what sphere are you making a stand in? What reality? Making a stand in a construct where you already agree to live within the bounds of that game, that virtual reality. You cannot transcend it. You will continue to cycle through the game until you wake up from the game and you realize that you are more than what you thought you were. You are more than what you were told you were. And then you willingly enter the doorway and you walk across that threshold into the truth that sets you free. That is ultimate freedom. It's the only freedom. My whole body is buzzing with joy. I can feel the light. I feel that love just flowing. And I offer that to you through the sound of my voice. I want you to feel it. I want you to feel the same gift that was offered to me so many times in my life. And I rejected it at first. But I came around and realized that it was true, that I am more than what I was told. And how do I know? Because I can feel it. That I am connected to pure presence, pure love. And that's what informs me. And that's what I pass on to you. Thank you for listening. My love to you.